Hey, welcome to Flight Test. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trent.
And today we get a really cool opportunity. Trent, you have an awesome history with drones that kind of led to general aviation, didn't it?
I do, yeah. I've flown RC since I was a little kid. I say a little kid, I guess I was 14, 15. And then as I was going through high school, I grew up in a ski town and all my friends were gonna be pro skiers, so I was the guy that picked up a camera.
Okay.
So my two passions were kind of flying RC and then working in the film industry. I ended up getting hired full-time at a production company as an editor.
Okay.
And one day I was baking out a render and I was sitting there and watched a video online, and the guy was flying the same remote control helicopter I had with the same camera I had mounted on the front. And I thought to myself, well, why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
So I put together a rig and we went and shot a video with our friend that was a pro mountain biker, and it got like 100,000 views in a couple weeks, and then the phone started ringing and
the rest is history.
Yeah, it turned into a career.
So you guys were actually doing this at a very high capacity before most people were.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your formal name for that?
It was Copter Kids.
Copter Kids.
And that name, actually, the name chose us. We didn't choose that. We were just the youngest ones on set.
Okay.
So when they didn't know what to call us, they said, hey, get those Copter Kids over here. So we kind of were like, oh, all right.
It's crazy because, oftentimes when we talk about model aviation, we talk about how, someone gets into model aviation because they desire to do general aviation, but they can't make the jump on the financial thing. With that, that's not the case, was it?
No. I've always had an interest in aviation. I was the kid that made my parents buy Discovery Flight and all that, but I like to watch it from the ground.
Yeah.
I was terrified, like white knuckle armrests on an airliner. And in 2014, when the FAA came out with the exemption program, which required commercial operators to get a pilot's license, that's what forced me to get my pilot's license.
I love how you say forced you to get your pilot's license. That's not something that people usually say.
And it was to the point that I was picking my nicest underwear before I went on a flight because I was pretty sure I was going to die in that airplane.
Wow.
I was that scared, and I wanted my wife to at least, I would be wearing nice clothes if she had to identify my body.
There you go.
And then at about 20 hours, I got the hang of it, and I started to enjoy it, and then come check ride, I was like, what plane am I buying?
And speaking of what plane are you buying, the plane behind me is something really near to my heart. My father actually and I were building the KitFox. It was a Model 2.
Yep.
This is a Series 5, right?
This is a Series 5, yeah.
Okay, so back when KitFox came out, they had lots of different models. You actually gave me the history of Model 1 through 4. His was a second generation Model 2, and it was a real light aircraft. We ended up selling it before we ever got to finish it, but I always dreamed of flying. I don't even know if this is considered a KitFox. This is borderline full-blown stall aircraft now.
Yeah, that's kind of it's the company I keep. And I'm hanging with people with a lot deeper pockets than me.
Okay.
And so therefore they have planes that are, really good STOL competitors, and I just try to hang with them.
Very cool. Well, tell us about your plane.
Okay, so it started as just a standard Series 5. Since then I've done a bunch of stuff. The big things are it has a new wing. It's got the bigger, higher lift profile wing. It's got some motor work, so it was originally 80 horsepower, now it's at 114.
Oh my.
And then you put it through a big prop, and then the landing gear, that gets the nose up to where you can get a higher angle of attack, and with the shocks on there, you can hit the ground so much slower and not mechanically bounce. So
wow.
It makes it to where, say we go and land on a hillside, we can go in, and if you had the old spring gear, if you were to hit and bounce, you might give up runway space that you don't have to give up. And this one, it'll just stick.
My father loved vortex generators on his Tailorcraft. You got vortex generators on this. You could probably hold a really crazy high angle of attack.
Yeah, and I can't see anything out the front. And it actually, as it sits, well, right now the tail's up because it's on a hill, but my angle of attack when I sit is not quite critical. So I can get deeper than that. So when I land, I hit tail first, and on rotation, I hit the tail, even though I try not to because that's drag. The original owner built it back in 1997.
Okay.
And then the previous owner who bought it from him had it for about a year, and he's a guy that just kind of flips airplanes. He bought it and flew it for a year, and then before he had to pay taxes on it, he sold it to me. But he actually dumped a bunch of money into it and took a loss on it, so it was good for me because he had already done some of the avionics and all that. So since then, I've just changed everything to make it kind of
more your flavor.
Yeah.
Well, this is a cool thing too, especially with experimental home builds and everything. You really get to put your own personality into every airplane you do. If you don't like something, you can actually change it. And that's a really cool feature about these planes, is you really build them to suit your needs.
And the cool thing too with experimental is you don't have to wait for technology to go through the FAA's whole establishment, and it ends up being a costly and time-consuming ordeal just to add something that makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, like I've got off-road lights on my wingtips that are brighter than anything you can buy, and they're lighter and they're cheaper.
Cost.
Yep. Yeah. And they just work better. and they're things that you couldn't put on a certified aircraft. So experimental is pretty cool because you end up with actually better technology in a lot of them. I mean, and then you get the other side of the thing where some people are garage built and there's a lot more duct tape and, you know, super glue than there probably should be. Yeah.
Well, my dad used to hold up, and we had a Tailorcraft BC-12D, and he would say the prop on the front there, he could get the exact same prop for a home built, and it would be a third the cost, just because of the certification process. And you're absolutely right, you know, you can get to the tip of the spear much quicker with the technology because you can get it into an experimental aircraft and get those benefits rather than waiting to 3 years, and by the time you get all the certifications, now all that paperwork costs money.
Yeah.
And that paperwork means that it's going to be transferred to you, and yeah, you're going to have something that's certified, but you're going to be 3 years behind it, which means your gear is going to be updated even quicker.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this is beautiful. What's your takeoff run on this thing?
At sea level, which I don't fly at sea level very much, it seems like it's in the 120, 140 foot range when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, just thinking about what we were talking about just 5 minutes ago here, where you're talking about being white knuckled on an airliner, what you're describing here would make me have white knuckles.
Yeah.
And it transitioned you from one to the other. Now, do you still do the drone flying, right?
I do. Yeah.
Cool. That's your main bread and butter.
That's my full-time thing. Well, I say full-time, but it's my only job.
It's your only
yeah,
job.
it ends up being, you know, I think we shoot maybe 5 days a month. But once you factor in travel, depending on where it is, because we aren't LA based.
Yeah.
We work as local in LA, which is the, you know, base for the film industry. Yeah. It ends up being a good portion of any month.
All right, so Trent, you said you fly with your friends a lot. What kind of things do you do?
You know, it's a wide array, but most of what we like to do is land high. So we live in the Sierra Nevadas. A lot of mountaintops that are basically inaccessible any other way. We like to try to find a place to land at the top, and you know, you can sled ride it back down and land at the bottom, and I'll do fun things where we find a hill and you land and do a quick whip around and take back off. I have a place called Skate Ramp, and it's basically a quarter pipe for planes.
Oh my God.
So we just play in them. And water skiing, you know, ski up a river and land on a gravel bar with, you know, using a water assisted landing.
That's some pretty crazy stuff. Now you're saying you ski down a hill. Are you talking about basically you fly your plane right off the hill and just kind of?
Yeah. If there's you know, a lot of times we'll land somewhere and it's got funky wind, but you get up top and you're like, wow, I might be taking off with a tailwind, but it drops off that way pretty well. So I'll just drive off that side, and you have enough wind and it's all ridge lift, which you guys know from slope soaring and all that. Works on a plane too. So really short ground rolls. With enough wind, it's a blast.
You got some monster tires here. You're just talking about skirting some water, slowing down, landing on like a gravel bar. What's that like?
That's fun, but there's definitely a pucker factor.
Yeah.
I've had friends that have gotten too slow, and you penetrate and then flip a plane, and
makes things awkward.
Yeah. It's a bummer. So if you stay fast and you're good, it's basically like a wheel landing on a tail wheel, just really fast. Well, not all that fast, but fast enough, and keep your speed up. And there's some sensations that will tell you if you're water skiing that you probably should get going faster. Once you start bobbing in it, it's an indication you're penetrating. So
wow,
there's a whole science to that whole thing.
Did you go somewhere to actually learn those techniques of bush flying afterwards, or was it just really taking some wisdom from your friends?
Yeah, it's mainly been just flying with people that do it already, and then picking up you know, what they do, and slowly taking my time and learning on my own. But a lot of it, you get a couple pointers here or there, and then even YouTube, you know, it's such a good base of information that you can pretty much find whatever you need on there. So there was a lot of videos that helped. Well, in my early days of doing the bush type flying, you know, techniques for takeoff and landing, and how to get it really slow without being unsafe and all that kind of stuff.
Well, what's your most memorable landing? Like, what's the one thing that you came in and like, there's no way I'm gonna put down that spot?
We landed at a spot over Tahoe that also overlooked Marlette Lake, and it was at about 9,000 feet.
Oh my.
And yeah, it was one way in, one way out, pretty steep and pretty short. But we landed up there and parked our planes right on the edge overlooking everything, and it was like, how did we even get here? And I'm like, how am I so lucky to be able to fly in this area?
Unreal.
If it's BLM land in Nevada, it's open game. We're an OHV vehicle. So as long as we aren't really messing anything up, we can land anywhere. Okay. Which is like heaven for a bush plane. You go into California, and it's not as easy, in a lot of other states. So we're in one of the most lenient areas.
So when you're flying a lot of aircrafts like this and stuff, it's probably a lot of brake management, throttle management, and also I'm guessing pitch management too, to make sure you don't tip over and stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, and so for a really short landing for me, I like to get all the way to a full stall. So you're bringing it in and normally behind the power curve, and then right before you touch, or if you have a mark that you want to touch, I just get rid of flaps, and then that'll spoil all your lift. Okay. And at that point, I'll land full lock on the brakes and just pull the stick back, and you manage your brakes to not let your prop hit. Wow. So it ends up being, you'll touch down at a 3-point and pop onto your mains and a wheelie stop. Wow. So, and then you vary it, because there's certain places, if I'm in soft sand, I'm going to keep the tail down because you don't want to go up onto your nose, or if it's muddy. But then also if it's really rocky, you don't want those things flinging up into your tail, so you'll do a tail high, wheelie. And then two, a lot of places we land, I don't have great visibility out of this thing in a 3-point, so I'll put it up on the mains just to be able to drive it, around rocks or whatever.
That's just basically modulating your brakes a little bit, picking up your tail and kind of pulsing on them, right?
Yeah, it's the same as in your plane. When you're taking off, you have enough rudder authority.
Oh yeah.
So it's the same thing. You're just driving on the mains.
Ironically, I wouldn't surprise me. I see some of the planes, especially the Cessnas with the big radials. I guarantee I have more visibility than them in my peak.
You probably have more than me because my seat sits so low, I can't see anything out the front at a 3-point.
It seems like airplanes don't really boast the best visibility. KitFoxes are actually a very economical airplane to build and purchase.
Yeah.
I know obviously you have a lot of money with the modifications here, but would you encourage someone if they're looking to install to basically look at the KitFox?
Definitely, yeah. As far as the best bang for your buck, this one's probably going to be it. And the model earlier than this, the Model 4, there are a ton out there. At one point they were selling about one a day. It was about 30 a month. So they can be had everywhere, and you can get it with the same motor as this for, I've seen them go for $20,000. And that motor alone is worth $18,000.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. And I remember the build experience, even though I was very young at the time, it was a blast putting that wing together with my father. Even the way the tube worked, and you slid the shear web in there and everything pop riveted together. It was a really easy build, a really rewarding build. It's something you didn't have to stare at for months and months. It actually went together very quickly. You still had your 51% experience, which meant you could maintain your own airplane. Yep. But I love it. And you have the flat bar and everything, right? Do you still have the bar? Yeah. Is the bar over there?
Yeah, it does. So basically it'll do both of the flapper-ons, and which also integrates. This is ailerons, so I could be rocking the ailerons, and as I drop flaps, you can see how much more they change. But basically, they're mixed flaps and ailerons. Yep. So when I drop flaps, both ailerons drop, and they're still mixed together. So
which means you still maintain control authority, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and you get basically full wing length ailerons. So I've got more aileron authority than most planes, and the way that they're separated from the wing, this plane actually still has full aileron authority all the way into a stall.
Oh, wow.
Where most planes will hit a region of reverse command that once you're stalled and you try to lift a wing, you just exacerbated it and it's going to want to flip over on you.
And that just recently happened and stuff. Oftentimes when that happens, it's not aileron that's going to save you, it's rudder. But the first tendency, it's immediately counter control, which means adverse yaw kicks in and everything drops out from underneath you, correct?
And that's the stall spin scenario. So these things in the low speed environment are probably about as safe as you're going to get because of that. Yeah, which is, it's a really cool, I guess, design that they have built into them.
It's a really beautiful design.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's one thing, I've always liked the look of the KitFox.
Now, does your wing still fold, or is it too long now? It still folds,
even
with the long?
Even with the big wing, it folds. And that's the other thing, the beauty of these planes, you can fold them, put them in a trailer them home, or keep them parked in a trailer, keep it in your garage, whatever you'd like. There's a lot of versatility in that. And then the new ones, they can be built in a tri-gear or tail wheel, and you can convert back and forth. So you just change your mind, change your gear. They can go on bush wheels, they can go on floats, they can go on skis. You can do anything with them.
Seems like the early days, KitFox was really focusing on trying to have one airframe that could meet everybody's needs. Yep. And they really haven't traveled far from that, which is really cool. Well, Trent, thank you so much, man. This is awesome. We can't wait to follow you more. Friends, we're gonna go ahead and put down some links down below, especially so you can follow Trent, see his adventures here, but also you can see all the amazing drone footage he captures. We'll see you next time.